Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us, and a very warm welcome to this pre-budget session organized by ACCA. This is a routine event that ACCA has been holding for many years, and thankfully our tax experts are important figures in the area of taxation or important personalities from various tax associations as well as accounting bodies are present in this webinar today. So it will be an excellent opportunity to learn about what we have to propose, what changes is ACCA proposing, in the light of its expertise, of understanding taxation from various countries. How can that lead us to a better economy, a better taxation system in Pakistan as well? And that's ACCA's forte, and ACCA has been playing its part to bring in these expertise and try to make recommendations for the uplift of Pakistan's economy and the tax system. I'm very pleased to have with us. I'll run a quick round of introductions. We have with us Mr. Asad Hamid Khan. Asad, if you can maybe wave your hand or somebody so people to know you. Asad is head of ACCA Pakistan. Thank you, Asad, for joining us today. Next up, we have Mr. Umar Zahir Mir. Umar Zahir Mir has been our MNP chair and also the head of the taxation subcommittee. He's also a member of ACCA's Global Tax Forum. Thank you very much, Umar, for joining us today. And also, Umar has played a very significant role in preparing the budget proposal that ACCA has submitted to the Ministry of Finance and to FBR already. We will be circulating this to our members today as well for your information, for your knowledge also. Next up, let me move on to Mr. Ziaul Mustafa, and this is no specific order. Mr. Ziaul Mustafa is the president of ICMA Pakistan. ICMA is a long-standing partner of ACCA. We work on many initiatives together. So thank you very much, Zia Saab. You don't see Zia Saab on the screen right now, but I'll request him to switch on his camera and show himself as well. Thank you very much, Zia Saab. Thank you for joining us. Next, we have Mr. Numan Yahya. And Numan Saab, you can see on the screen. Numan Saab, if you can maybe wave at the participants. Here we have Mr. Numan, and he is the president of the Lahore Tax Bar Association. Thank you very much, Numan Saab, for joining us. We are joined by a huge number of participants from our membership. So thankfully, I'm sure they will benefit from your presence here. We have Mr. Shabir Fakhruddin as well. And Mr. Shabir Fakhruddin also leads a tax bar. So I think if he's connected through audio, we will be able to hear him later on. Next up, we have Mr. Muhammad Jamil. He's an ACCA member and the CFO of B-Filer. So Muhammad Jamil has joined us from Karachi. And last but not the least, we have Mr. Zishan Razak also with us, again an ACCA member. And Zishan is also our expert entrepreneur. So, the recommendations that ACCA has made with respect to the startup ecosystem, with respect to entrepreneurs, Zishan will be able to share his expert opinion about that. So without any further ado, if I can hand over to Asad to deliver Asad, if I can make you the presenter also, you will be able to share your presentation. Are you happy to do that? So you'll be able to switch your slides yourself. Or do you want me to do that for you? Sorry, Asad, you're on mute. No, Asad, we can't hear you. Give me a second. No, your headphones are probably still not working. No, you're unmuted, but your headphones are not working. Okay.
Any
All right,
success?
so yes, now we can hear you. Thank you very much. So Asad, how would you want to begin? Would shall I make you the presenter so you can share your screen, or shall I do that for you?
Yes, please. If you could make me the presenter, I'm happy to present myself.
We have lost you again, Asad.
I'm happy to present. Is it working?
Yes, but your voice is very feeble and it seems to disappear. So I'm making you the presenter. You will have an option of sharing your screen available to you now.
Please do prompt me if there is an issue with the audio. Is it working well now?
I don't know. I can't hear you very clearly, but I don't know if others can.
So what I can do is probably shift to another set of headphones. Just a second, please.
If you can just remove the headphones, I think that should be fine. Just remove them. Your computer microphone should work fine. Yes. Can you try speaking now?
Yes, is it working? Is it better?
Much better, much better, much better. Yeah. All right. So you are the presenter now. Again, the choice is yours. If you want, you can run the slideshow yourself, or you can ask Feroz, who's a better expert. Oh, there you go. All right. You already presented. Slideshow mode, and you're on. Great. Yes.
Yes. Can you see the screen? Is the
Yes,
video?
Asad, your presentation is visible.
Okay, brilliant. So, shall we begin?
Thank you very much. I think we should begin. And at the same time, I'd like to remind all the participants who are attending the session to type in their questions in the questions dialog box as they come to your mind. Close to the end of the session, we will be looking at the questions that you have thrown at us, and we will be putting them up to the panelists. So please keep typing your questions in to make this session as interactive as possible. Thank you very much. Yes, Asad, over to you.
Thank you very much, Harun. Before I begin, I just wanted to ask, have we been able to share our budget proposals with our member community?
Yes, the budget proposal has been shared in WhatsApp groups, but at the moment it's about to be emailed. So it is being emailed right now.
Okay, brilliant. So I think that will be a good culmination of today's session. So thank you once again to all the esteemed speakers joining us today. Thank you for taking our time. I'd like to thank all participants who have joined us today for this webinar, and to the CC team for setting this up. So uh, before I begin, I think the most important thing for us is, or let's say critical for us, is to know what our identity is. So we continue to be accounting professionals. We continue to be individuals who are on a daily basis, playing a role for our organizations, for the people that we contribute to, and resultantly the sectors that our organizations contribute towards. So this entire canvas is what would eventually contribute to the economy. So if you look at the very purpose of the accounting organizations, and especially ACCA, so we take a lot of pride in presenting ourselves and branding ourselves as a force of public good. And when we say a force for public good, our major focus is how we can create opportunity, how this profession is vital for the society, how we can help the organizations leading up to the economies to grow and prosper, and last but not the least, how we can make the profession and the society fairer and transparent. So, keeping this in mind, you as the members in the past, this is something that we very proudly reflect and suggest to all the stakeholders that we engage, that we have a pledge, a collective pledge towards a sustainable Pakistan. And how is that? That is through a socio-economic growth which is inclusive and which is sustainable. How would that be? So we had identified three pillars. One, obviously, growth. How do we sustain that? What is a number that we should look at? The other is in terms of what makes us competitive locally as well as globally, because unless and until the business confidence emanates from the domestic players, we will not be able to encourage the foreign players to come to the desired level that we have anticipated or forecasted in the past. Next, and I think this is something which comes very unique from an ECCA perspective, and that is the commitment to the sustainable goals, development goals of the United Nations. So, as an organization, not just in Pakistan, but from a global context, you would see that we, in our integrated reporting and in our various commentaries, specifically pick up on our commitment to 9 out of the 17 sustainable development goals. So, moving on, so what are these sustainable development goals? So if I can share these with you, we are talking about quality education, we're talking about gender equality, we're talking about decent work and economic growth, we're talking about industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Can you see my slides moving? We talk about reducing inequalities, we talk about responsible consumption and production. We talk about climate action. There's a lot of focus in terms of net zero carbon emissions. We talk about peace and justice, strong institutions with a very strong focus on ethics, on governance within the institutions. And last but not the least, everything that we are doing, even today, if we see the esteemed panelists for today's discussion, you would see partnerships in action, in motion, where we are bringing, including different stakeholders, different experts, and collectively bringing out a perspective, not just for our members, but I'm sure that our members would take that onwards to our organizations and have an impact over there. So, in terms of the budget proposal, I'll leave the details with Ms. Umar Zahir Mir, and obviously the esteemed panelists once the discussion happens. But keeping this context in mind, where we are a force for public good, where we are talking about creating opportunities, where we're talking about fairness and transparency, where we're talking about commitment to UN SDGs, you would see that our proposal is unique in a way that it suggests or focuses on just one thing, which is the economic model. So unless we get the economic model right, we understand what the economic story Pakistan has to offer, what are the economic opportunities, what are the risks associated with that, and how we can then articulate the roadmap towards an inclusive and sustainable growth. So we have a lot of challenges which in fact are opportunities. When we talk about growing population, we talk about climate change, we talk about agricultural yields. So any proposal, any government economic policy, any incentives fiscally enabling that economic policy needs to address the food security challenge. Because of our lower yields to date, we have not been able to really capitalize the agricultural economy status and move towards self-sufficiency or even export in terms of in real terms for our commodities. Then, in terms of how do we incentivize domestic and foreign investors, how do we address the local productivity and output quality challenges? How can they be incentivized? How can lack of quality be disincentivized through policy making, especially the fiscal policy, which we feel the fiscal policy is there to enable a larger economic model, a larger economic policy, which is sustainable, which is consistent, which is long term, and which continues to move us in a direction of reducing our challenges and increasing our opportunities or increasingly capturing our opportunities. We talk about internet and technology. The digitization or digitalization has reduced has really uh, brought the global village concept into action. So how we can access that massive global marketplace. We talk about the balance of payments, how we can move towards an economy which is exports driven, which increases exports, which is reducing imports essentially of those items which are non-essential or are luxury, how we can continue to maintain our local consumption, and how we can enable an environment where inflation is managed and is in lower bands. I've already talked about consistency in economic policies. So as you would see, the idea is that if we want this economic policy, we have this huge 130 plus million youth bulge, out of which another 60, if we look at the 60% within this 130 plus million, they're between the ages of 18 to 30, how we can productively utilize them so that they create a better future for our youth under the age of 18. We talked about import bill reduction, how we can move towards alternate energy, how we can move towards clean energy, how that can be incentivized. Exports, you see, there has been a lot of focus in terms of manufacturing goods-based exports. So in Pakistan, ACC has been advocating along with our uh, counterparts, stakeholders, that how we can mainstream services as an export-oriented services, leverage that and take benefit of international precedents like Philippines, like Vietnam, like China, like India, where these exports alone are at the moment, as a minimum, at least twice the size of our total exports. Then, last but not the least, I think in terms of principles, it is about shifting the tax burden, where we can, you see, shift the tax burden towards the higher income stratas within the population and reduce the taxation burden on the lower income cadres. How do we do that? Whether that is through subsidies, but as a principle, this is what we have suggested. The key questions, I think these will be picked up in today's conversation, that all that we have discussed in terms of opportunity as a nation, are we ready? Do we have the quality? Do we have the ethics? Do we have the skills? Are we able to produce products that meet international standards? In terms of the incentives, when we talk about agriculture, is the farmer incentivized enough, and is it profitable for them to adopt the new practices so that they can increase their yields? In terms of the orientation as a nation, I think we have heard for a very long time that we are a consumption oriented economy, and we need to move towards savings. But to enable those savings, how do we incentivize greater revenue generation, greater per capita income, greater utilization of savings, and also channel those savings? You see, up till now, when we talk about the tax base, which I will discuss a bit further, you see, we've always talked about broadening of the tax base. So at the moment, is taxability or paying legitimate taxes, is it a choice or is it a mandatory compliance? So that's a key policy direction. From a capital market perspective, you see, capital formation is the key for any growing economy, for any developed economy. It helps organizations seek different avenues of raising capital that help them expand, that help them create value for their shareholders, for their stakeholders, and in return bring value to the society that they operate in. Last but not the least, I think this is something that we have been suggesting for a very long time. It's a buzzword in the past, today as well, that can all forces that matter sign and come to a charter of economy that ensures that there is policy continuity and consistency in terms of implementation for at least a period of 10 to 15 years. See, we will talk about ACC's tenets of taxation, the global tenets that we have picked up based on our global research. But when we look at the tax revenue, how we can maximize the tax revenue, if we are to move towards self-sufficiency, if we are to move towards low or less debt reliance, how we can increase our revenue, how that revenue can be sourced, what are the different rates, whether that's direct, whether that's indirect, whether that's for individuals, whether that is for corporates. If we increase the base, then automatically our tax revenue increases and we would have more cushion not just to service our major components within the budget, but at the same time spend greater in terms of public sector, what we call the public sector development program, which generates a lot of value for the citizens. Why? Because at the end of the day, you see, we all ask why we pay taxes, who we pay the taxes to. Once we know that, we also want to know where those taxes are spent and if at all they're being spent on us. So last but not the least, I will not delve in detail on this. I would let yourselves uh, go through this. This is the 12 global tenets of taxation. It'll be helpful that whenever we as senior members, future members, as strategic leaders, as regulators, as advisors, as compliance people look at taxation, these are the 12 global tenets that have helped shape sustainable policies within the taxation domain, which are a subset of the larger economic policy and that have put all economies that we call developed at the moment or developing at a greater pace and reducing the divide towards becoming a developed economy, implementing these tenets. So thank you very much, and I hope that you have a wonderful, detailed, insightful session and the panel discussion. And please, I would encourage do pick up on any questions that you feel can help your organization, yourselves, and at the same time, if you're advisors, to advise your clients and customers. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Asad. And I think very detailed and impressive speech. So much so that while you were finishing up your speech, there were birds chirping in the background. And I hope the birds always chirp in Pakistan. And I hope the country continues to flourish. So even, angels and birds are also appreciating, the recommendations. I think the very sane recommendations made by professionals. So thank you very much for that. Our next speaker is Mr. Omar Zahir Mir. Omar, will you be presenting yourself or shall I ask Feroz to present for you?
If you could please ask Feroz.
All right, so Feroz, you're going to become the presenter. You have Mr. Omar's slides. So we are now going to look at the budget proposal that ACC prepared in slight more detail. And I would appreciate if we can leave more time for panel discussion also, because that's where all our experts also come in and talk about, how they feel, their budget proposals. I mean, for example, ICMAB has, I'm sure, have ideas and, useful submissions to the government for economic recovery. So I'm very sort of eager to hear from the Multan tax bar, from the Lahore tax bar, and from ICMAB as well. So we have the presentation in front of us. Over to you, Mr. Omar.
Thank you, Mr. Harun. I would begin with a little prayer. Allah, open my heart and ease my task for me and remove the impediments from my speech so that they may understand what I say. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. So I take great pleasure in how ACC over the years has become a major player in the taxation scene and the collaborations with key institutions, the likes of ICMAP Pakistan, Lahore, Karachi, Multan, Faisalabad, Pakistan Tax Bar, other professional institutes. And I would like to congratulate the head of ACCA Pakistan, Mr. Asad Hamid Khan, the head of member affairs, Mr. Harun Jan, and all the team who have put together the arrangements for today's session. And obviously, I would like to extend on behalf of all the members, the MNP, the Taxation Committee, and ACCR felicitations and thanks to all the participants today, as well as to all who have joined us online as well. With this, let's try to move on to the major proposals. Although it's a 41 slide presentation, I'll try to go through it as quickly as possible and hopefully within a few minutes because I want to give more time to the panel discussion. So one of the core theme of the proposals, and it's good that Asad has already given a overview and a basic strategic outline of the theme of our proposals. So broadening of the tax base is basically one of the critical fundamentals on which Pakistan's taxation, budget, and economic direction should be based. Out of a population of now over 220 million people, about 1.4%, that's it, only 1.4% file their income tax returns, and that's as per the last official release figures. While almost everyone is practically being taxed indirectly on various products and services, but the documentation of the economy is a serious challenge. The paying of the direct taxation in an equitable and just manner is a major issue. And we will talk about the major challenges, but the truth is that issues lies on both sides. Uh, there are questions about just and fair treatment of taxpayers, about reducing the subjective power, making the taxation law more open and transparent and more just and fair and equitable for all in order to induce the taxpayers' confidence and making tax evasion less attractive and taxes more convenient by resorting to what ACC refers to as volume over margin by reducing the tax rates to single digit, while also focusing on the structural reforms to help expand the tax base. Next, please. Next slide, please. So we have already mentioned about the increased impetus on documenting the economy and volume over margin. Next slide. So in this regard, utilization of various databases, particularly the NASA National Authorities database, as well as all the withholding taxes databases that are now available with the government are literally like a gold mine that is waiting to be utilized. So every couple of years, we hear these announcements from various policymakers as well as regulators and tax officials that they have data between, it usually ranges between 3 to 7 million. At the last major announcement, it was claimed to be 5 million people who are enjoying a luxurious lifestyle. They either travel abroad, they either have multiple or singular properties in posh areas across major metropolis. They may have multiple valuable motor vehicles. They might have investments. They might have plots. They might have other assets. They might have their children going to very expensive schools. And yet they do not even have a national tax number. Now, the question is, what are we waiting for? These are the things on which we can take action. And ACCA, for as long as I can remember, since I've been the chair of the taxation subcommittee, has been stressing on the importance of this proposal. And we really do hope that we get to see some action in this right direction to expand the tax base by bringing those who should be in the tax net within it. With regard to the cash transactions, the transactions through cash ideally should be discouraged, because if we want to achieve a documented economy, it's only of essence. However, we cannot overlook the fact that a major part of the population is not financially included. They do not have access to the banking facilities. So that's a challenge which needs to be countered, which need to be addressed, and where the fintech industry would come in. Next, please. So with regard to structural reforms, one major issue is the harmonization of tax laws in the country. While most of the world is going towards collaboration and we have the single European economic area, in Pakistan post 18 amendment, we have a very unique situation where practically there are four provinces are like four different territories. Then we have the capital, which is a different territory. Then we have Gilgit Baltistan, Azad Kashmir. So it's like seven semi-autonomous territories in terms of taxation and trade operating within one country. Now, the challenges that they bring are about the jurisdiction issue, about the duplication of taxation, the refunds issue, the filing, the magnitude of time and resources a business has to spend on actually ensuring that they are able to comply with all the regulation is simply I would use the word very cautiously, but outrageous, even if we compare with other countries in the region, and is one of the major hindrance in ease of doing business. So with regard to this rationalization of the conflicting laws, continuing on from the harmonization of taxation laws between various provincial bodies as well as the provincial and federal authorities, rationalization of the conflicting tax laws, such as the provisions allowing overseas Pakistan to bring foreign currency in Pakistan, but the mechanism of proving it to be legitimate still being there, are the murky areas which need to be reconciled to actually have the faith of the taxpayer within the system. Similarly, a revision of the evaluation and penalization system should be done to positively affect the overall revenue collection. The policy of incentivizing filers, in our opinion, should continue to encourage more and more people to come within the ambit of the taxation. Next, please. Use of technology is always recommended in all sectors and more so within the ambit of taxation to remove inefficiencies while increasing the public trust and also address the issue of subjectiveness. Similarly, decreasing the complexity to simplify the processes as well as to make the portals, various taxation portals, user-friendly for the common people should be an objective. Similarly, and this is extremely close to my heart, revising the performance evaluation criteria of not just FPR, all taxation functionaries is critical if we want to induce the public trust. At the moment, let me speak from the other side as well. They are overworked, understaffed, and they have a singular criteria for their promotions, their posting, their benefits, their bonuses, and that is collection. Then is it surprising the practices we get to see and the lack of public trust that we face? So perhaps it's now time to introduce impact on economic sectors like GDP development, new businesses being opened, and number of decisions taken by the FPR or other taxation authority functionaries that are upheld at the appellate forum, along with the collections. You can still have the collections as the major criteria, but introduce these other criteria so that they become more concerned about the public sentiment, about broadening the tax base, have an interest in that area as well. And similarly, we also believe that the utilization of taxation should also reach to the taxpayer that, okay, so Mr. XYZ paid, for example, 10 lakh in taxes. Out of that, 3 lakh was spent on education, 1 lakh was spent on other services, 3 lakh went to maybe debt servicing, 2 lakh was spent on defense, etc. So a sense of accountability, a sense of trust, as well as transparency comes into play. Next, please. We have already mentioned about the portals. An independent appellate system is vital at the moment. All the tax practitioners, and I'll be putting this question to our learned friends from the tax bars, the honorable presidents, is simply speaking not in the line with the best practices. You have FPR officials sitting as the first appellate forum. So you are going to complain about someone, and someone belonging to that institution is going to listen to your complaint. And that basically negates the entire essence of the independence of an appellate system. Similarly, timely hiring and postings of all officials to help reduce the backlog and hiring and training of adequately qualified staff, and that is where ACCA along with other professional institutes can play a critical role, should be the key considerations. Effective enforcement should be ensured by working on maximum automation of the taxation system. Next, please. We believe the corporate tax rates in Pakistan should reduce. The current policy of reducing them was a positive one, but still the rates are very high in the region. We in fact have one of the highest corporate tax rates in the region. So if we want to attract FDI and facilitate local business ecosystem, these needs to be reduced to at least a level of 20 to 25% in the short to medium term. Next, please. Similarly, tax rates for individual businesses should also be reduced. Next, please. At the moment, they actually suffer the most because the rates for individual businesses are as high as 35%. And SME for any major developing economy is the backbone of the economic sector. And for Pakistan, it's more critical. We do not need to make them cash cow. We actually need to facilitate them like we used to do for the IT sector and see the benefits. Just think of it as growing the pot larger. If the cake is larger, the pie you'll be getting would be larger as well. With regard to direct taxes, ACC is really proud that one of our suggestions actually partially resolved the dilemma and the backlash we were getting from FATF with regard to section 1114 regarding foreign exchange remitted from outside Pakistan. Before, there used to be no limit and no evidence was required and there was no taxation. While we fully back the policy of not taxing the foreign remittance, we do believe that requiring evidence is critical, and this will help curb money laundering as well as reduce the damage to genuine and law-abiding businesses, while encouraging business ecosystem in the country as well as the compliance with local and international laws. And for doing that, do not introduce any taxes. The current policy can continue, but do require the evidence of the fund, and anyone doing a genuine business abroad or earning a genuine income wouldn't have any issue if they are using any means, like for example money transfer services. They are providing those evidences anyway. Next, please. Section 113, we believe the current rate is astronomically high and should be reduced, especially as it's a minimum tax, and despite a business incurring a loss, still having to pay this tax is not just, and the argument that the economy is not documented or the accounts can be fudged is not really very meritorious, because there are audit provisions within the law and there are powers with the tax officials. So it's their duty to actually ensure that things are in order. This is no way to penalize genuine businesses. Next, please. Section 138 regarding recovery of tax through attachment of bank accounts or property, or in worst case arrest. Currently, the allowance for the commissioner to attach the property before expiry of notice period is on satisfaction of the commissioner. We believe that any such power, any such attachment before expiry of notice period may only be authorized by the commissioner in the presence of objective evidence, which should be shared with the taxpayer with an appropriate time period to respond. Next, please. Similarly, with regard to section 153 regarding minimum tax for provision or rendering of services, we believe that service sector has been one of the largest growing employer and contributing to national economy as well. So most segments of the service sector do not enjoy lucrative margins like some other sectors. So the current rates are astronomically high as 10%, and sometimes some sector within the service industry only have a margin of 2 to 5%. So it's basically discouraging new entrants or smaller players. We believe these rates should be reduced and rationalized. Next. Section 170 regarding refunds is a long-standing issue, and we know about the issues, liquidity issues facing. There are two issues. Number one is that despite the time period lapsing, the refunds are practically not processed for years and years. Anybody who deals with taxes know that. And one of the major reasons of the lack of public trust is this unfortunate practice. We have proposed two solutions to address this as well as the liquidity issue. Number one, we have proposed that a certain amendment should be made that if a refund case is not decided by the lapse of the statutorily mentioned period in section 170, then the refund application shall be deemed successful. And that should be integrated within the IT system. Secondly, we believe that tradable bank vouchers or notes should be issued to help address the liquidity crisis, and those notes can be used to issue the refunds. Next, please. Next, please. We believe Section 177 audit power should only be exercised in cases of where there are genuine evidences and based on precise information. And it should not be used as a tool, as a replacement for board's audit selection. It should only be on the basis of precise information. Next, please. Section we believe it should not be exercised to the detriment of the taxpayer, and that is in line with the Constitution of Pakistan and decisions of superior courts. Next, please. Similarly, we believe sales tax rate should be reduced. Just to give you an idea, our general standard rate is 17%. Obviously, it's low for some sectors and on provincial levels for services. However, in the region, the rate is around 12% on average. And it is as low as just 6% in Malaysia and as high as 15% in Bangladesh. Even in India, it's much lower than ours. So we believe it should come down in a phased manner with a proposed immediate reduction to 14% with a target of medium to long term to bring it to a single digit. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, harmonization and similarly lack of interprovincial harmonization is also an issue which we have already shared, and this results in double taxation. So for example, SRB says that we want to tax based on the origination of services, while the other provincial body says we want to tax based on the termination of the services, and this basically puts off the businessman and creates a lack of ease of doing business and needs to be addressed. Next, please. Adjustable input tax under section 8b, with the introduction of stripe system, there is no sense in restricting this to 90%. The argument before was there are issues in the system, it can't be verified. Now with the online system, the invoices are only claimed if they are verified by both parties. So in line with the principles of fairness, equity and justice for all, and to help restore the confidence of business, we believe that the limit of 90% adjustment should be abolished. Next, please. Revision of sales tax return should be automated in line with the policy on the income tax side and to harmonize the tax laws as well as facilitate the taxpayers. Similarly, appeals under Section 45B of the Sales Tax Act 1990 should be heard by a person not under the administrative jurisdiction or influence of FPR, and that's the same proposal for all taxation authorities appeal. Next. The custom values should be updated on a timely basis to avoid misdeclaration, and enhanced reliance should be placed on automated processes in this regard. Some of them have already been in motion and some should be put more in motion. Federal excise duty on services, post 18 amendment, the power to levy and administer sales tax on services was transferred to provinces. So if there is still FED on a few services, that should be eliminated to facilitate the businesses. Next, please. Savings to GDP ratio has once again declined and is about even less than half of that in India. So government should encourage this by offering better returns and ensuring conducive business ecosystem. Next. Similarly, ACCA believe there should be a complete ban on import of CBU kits and limited CBU units on high duty should be allowed only. 40% localization should be done within 3 years in a phased manner with an ultimate aim of total local production, not just putting together the imported engines and all and just naming that as the auto industry, but actually building the entire unit and vehicle here. Similarly, promoting the hybrid vehicle and electric vehicle should be part of the long-term strategy, and a special tax on SUV, mini SUV, and luxurious uh, vehicles should be levied. Next. To bring professionals into the TechSnet, jewelers should maintain complete record of their sales. This is bound to happen as it's been a thorn with regard to our program with FATF as well. So ACCA strongly proposes that. Similarly, to address the costly energy crisis and energy shortages and help facilitate the economy, ACCA believes subsidy on solar panel and various other steps should be taken. Similarly, a mix of green energy should also be focused upon. Promotion of the startup ecosystem and government venture capital funds is also critical. Promoting investment in livestock and developing agriculture using some state-of-the-art technologies and out-of-box proposals that have been put forward by ACCA can really help facilitate the economy. Next. Next. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, with regard to ITES sector, we believe that they should be facilitated. Similarly, the telecom sector as well. We believe that the proposed rumors of 30% levy of the tax could be counterproductive. IT sector has grown tremendously over the last few years and is bringing in about between close to $2 billion in export revenue. And we believe if properly facilitated, it has the potential to reach 20 to $25 billion exports within next 3 to 5 years. And that should be the focus of the regulation. Obviously, the detailed proposals will be released later, and we are facing a shortage of time. So it's really a tough decision because all these proposals are really important. How many slides are we left with, Feroz?
Around 3 or 4.
Okay, let's do them. So with regard to fiscal and monetary management, the ongoing economic challenges do warrant a proper fiscal and monetary management policy. In this scenario of low economic growth and increasing inflation, bulk of the burden should be borne by the state by providing more room to the businesses in the country to strengthen the trade ecosystem and to capitalize on a sustained purchasing power. What this means is that we need to think out of the box about how we can manage our economy. Perhaps some incentives and some steps taken during the COVID can continue, or policies on similar lines should be undertaken to ensure there is a steady supply of finance or other incentives to the businesses so that we are not looking in the face of another economic downturn with increasing unemployment and lack of purchasing power. Next, please. Uh, the world is moving towards game-changing technologies. Knowledge economy is the way of the future. Even right now, look at UK. What is it producing? Is it an agricultural country? No, it's not. Is it now an industrial nation? No, it's not. It's a knowledge economy. Look at Japan. They hardly have any train to grow any kind of agriculture. They are an industrialized nation now, but that has been based on the knowledge economy. And that's the way forward for Pakistan as well. We need to introduce in our youth, that is the population bulge, our biggest asset. We need to invest in our human resource, and we need to focus on the game-changing technologies now rather than later to actually take the first movers benefit rather than missing the train. Next. Some of the key technologies are artificial intelligence, machine learning, next blockchain, big data analytics. So an investment need to be made in managing these and promoting businesses and bringing them towards these areas so we have a proper ecosystem. Similarly, cryptocurrencies and use of similar technologies can really push Pakistan forward. With regard to CPEC, we still believe that it's a flagship project. There are some geostrategic issues which we hope and we believe government of Pakistan would be able to handle with over $69 billion of investments in road infrastructure, energy, railway, communication projects in Pakistan. It's worth more than the entire foreign investment in last few decades. Next, please. These are highlights from ACCA's exclusive research on CPEC. CPEC projects have the potential to generate 7 to 8 lakh jobs in Pakistan, with an addition of 12 to 15K kilometer of roads. Obviously, construction of these infrastructure will benefit the industry, and as a result, 800,000 additional cars would be required, which should help promote the auto industry. Banking sector can grow at least 2 to 3%. Back, please. Banking sector can continue to grow at least 2 to 3% with over 30 billion US dollar in the insurance industry expected. Next. Similarly, the policy that has started recently of developing economic zones along the CPEC route should be the main focus to help promote the business ecosystem in the country. Next, please. Next. Next. So with regard to CPEC also, these game-changing technologies can play an extensive part. Once CPEC becomes fully operational, think about the volume that would be coming in, who would be handling that? Few custom officers with the laptops sitting there? No, that's not going to happen. That would be AI and machine learning. So it's better to be prepared now. Similarly, the taxation, revenue, export data, all that, you'll be needing a lot of big data analytics. And that's why a lot of aware and technologically sound finance professional accountants would be required. So a taxation model of how to address these challenges, how to tax these technologies is critical. Next. Great. I tried to finish the presentation as quickly as I could, but it still took, I think, north of 20 minutes. But I think this is the right time to move on to the panel discussion. So over to you, Harun. I wish we had more time because these proposals are really outstanding and out of the box. I do encourage you all to please go through this proposal. ACCA has a big benefit of a global footprint and the global knowledge that it brings for the benefit of Pakistan. I'm sure we'll be sharing these proposals with our partner organizations, ICMA Pakistan, Lahore, Karachi, Multan Tax Bar, Pakistan Tax Bar, and please do provide your input and feedback on this, as well as the same goes to our members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Omar. I know you've done this with blazing speed, and this is the fastest it could be. I'm also realizing that our worthy panelists have been sitting back and listening very patiently. But I mean, in the interest of their respect, may I request Mr. Ziaud Mustafa, before we begin the panel discussion, for a few very key highlights from, that you think they're closer to your heart. If you can very quickly share with us, and then we can head for the panel conversation. So, Zia sir.
Thank you, Harun sir. Bahut shukriya. First of all, I would like to appreciate ACCA for organizing this session for the benefit of the members of accounting professionals and business professionals. And I appreciate yourself and Asad for managing this event. And I also must appreciate Umar Zahir, and he always presented the things in a very in a very elaborated manner, and very I believe these things are very useful for the decision makers and for the stakeholders as well. So I would just like to share a few things on which we are focusing right now from the platform of ICMA, and what we are recommending, and what is right now the issue arose and due to this financial situation in the country, that is the trade deficit. Right now the gap between the imports and exports are very much, and although the indicators of growth are very much encouraging, but the thing which we are facing, that is the deficit of foreign exchange. So in our proposals, we recommended that how we can enhance the exports from the country, and how we can reduce the bill of imports. So in these things, we suggest some austerity measures as well, which at large also recommended from different forums as well, which includes the work from home for one day at least, so that we can save the energy, we can reduce the bill of petroleum and oil. And so this is what we have, austerity measure which we have suggested. And then the withdrawals of the tax exemptions on which the government has extended to the various sectors. But right now we are of the opinion that these sectors should be competitive enough that they should take their load at their own, rather than always looking for the subsidies. And this is now the culture of Pakistan, that mostly sectors are looking for the subsidies and looking for the exemptions. So we have to be the cost competitive, we have to be the quality competitive. So we should shift this burden towards the businesses so that they can improve. So this is one of the suggestion. And in order to reduce the gap between the foreign exchange, one thing is the foreign remittance from the Pakistanis, and other thing which needs to be highlighted, that is the privatization of SIC units. Because if we can go for immediate $5 to $6 billion privatization plan, then we can reduce this burden on the rupee. So right now the rupee is under burden, and there is a gap which we are facing due to the trade deficit. How we can earn the foreign exchange? So we have to go for the privatization on a priority basis. The process of privatization is very slow, and there are a number of SIC units very well that a government can go for the privatization and mature the privatization proceeds. So this is the area where the government should need to be focused, so that rather than always looking for $2 to $3 billion from the various countries and from the various donor agencies, we have to also look into the things that we have the assets which are not operational right now, which needs to be operative, and through this we can get the proceeds. And then we are always talk about the simplification of tax laws, and now we are also talking about the unification of tax laws. This is the need of the day, that businessman is facing a lot of issues. We have a number of several tax laws in different provinces and the federal tax laws. So we have to go for the unification of tax laws, so that the business processes should be easy, and we have to focus on ease to do business. So tax complications are one of the hurdle, and other regulatory affairs need to be simplified. So these are the suggestions from our side, and the suggestion as well, that the audit that keep in mind the ease to do business. When we are talking about ease to do business, then the private sectors where there is no public interest, there should not be a mandatory audits. Audits should be mandatory only for the public interest organizations. So and this is the worldwide phenomena, that the audits are normally mandatory. Audits are mandatory for the public interest, where there is a private sector, if there is no requirement of the shareholders or the stakeholders, then there is there is exemptions as well. So we have to work for the ease to do business. We have to be cost to doing business we have to address, and the cost of doing business, especially for the public sector, the cost audits should be mandatory, so that we can focus on the cost cutting and cost rationalization, and the utilities which we are supplying to the people of Pakistan, that should be cost effective, and we have to reduce the cost of doing business by controlling this utilities cost. So these are the few things, and I believe that other participants will also highlight their areas, what they suggested to the government, from their platforms. And more or less, the voice is that we have to enhance the business activity, we have to improve the taxation system, we have to improve the proceedings, foreign exchange from various sources. So, sir, this is from my side, and I am
Thank you very
available
much.
for questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks very much. Now time for our panel discussion. May I request Mr. Umar Zahimi to come forward and run the panel discussion for us. May I request all the panelists to switch on their camera so participants can see them. In fact, I should switch my camera off, which is out of order as well. So Umar Zahir Saab, over to you for the panel discussion.
Thank you, Arun sir. I think let's go straight into the thick of things. I'd like to begin with Mr. Noman Yahya, the President Lahore Tax Bar. Can you hear us?
Mr. Numan Yahya has dropped off. We're trying to bring him back.
Okay, so let's move forward. Is Mr. Shabir Fakhruddin with us?
Yes, he's with us.
Shabir sir, can you hear us? Please unmute yourself. Harun sir, if you could please check with him, I'll meanwhile move forward to Zishan. So Zishan, you've been listening to a summary of the key proposals. And as an ACCA member, someone who has been in entrepreneurship yourself, and seeing the culture of business ecosystem within the country, especially in the context of the startups and the proposals that ACCA have made. If I ask you to pick one proposal, just one proposal that you think should be the ultimate must that should be accepted within this budget session, what would that be and why?
Okay, thank you, Omar Saab. You know, Pakistan is one of the place where entrepreneurs are very happy, and Pakistan has the one of the most thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem right now. In past year, 2021, if I say, around $500 million has been raised by the startups which are based in Pakistan, and they have started their business, and they are doing phenomenal job. Pakistan is one of the fifth most populous country. See, so these all are the pros of being an entrepreneur within Pakistan, one of the largest growing middle class. So if I say one of these key thing which should be included or which should be approved by the higher ups, it would be, I would say, this entrepreneurship is happening within the IT or IT enabled services sector, and this sector is dependent upon the hardware, the equipment. So if we could be able to ensure the cheap availability of IT equipment, for instance, the laptop, the tablet, and see graphic cards, the gaming industry is also thriving in Pakistan. So if somehow we could introduce a special import duty concessions on the capital equipment, and also for zero duties and sales tax on the laptop and IT equipment, I would say this should be one of the must approved recommendation from my side. I have to say I can share more.
Thank you for your inputs. Now, while we are waiting for Mr. Shabir to join us, let me move forward to you, Jamil. You have had an interesting career and are now with a business that is using IT.
Yes, first of all, thank you, Umar, for giving such a beautiful presentation
To
on
promote
the
the
proposal.
taxation as well. Do you think that the adoption of technology within the taxation authority, if not, can it be improved?
First of all, thank you, Umar, for giving such a beautiful budget proposal and budget presentation to us to understand what is going on in our economy. And the main thing is the government is doing good in IT sector, and I think the IT sector is depend on, we only restrict the IT sector in improved payment systems and customer relationship management, and now it's time to bring taxation to it. I think this is the most greater step of B-filer, I think, and I don't know if there is any competitor of us or not, but I think we have the app only, which makes it easier, as Mr. Ziaul Mustafa said. It makes easier for us to understand the tax laws and for the business persons. And now I think the government has to take a step over the integration with these type of companies who is making the taxation easy in Pakistan. So this is my recommendation on the budget. Are you there?
Umar, back to you. I think Umar is also facing some connectivity issue. Yeah. So let's just give him a second before, or otherwise we'll continue the conversation. Yeah, I think he's gone offline. So once again, let me pick it up from here while Umar tries to reconnect. Zia Saab, let me tell you one thing. Although it's not nice to quote Sri Lanka, but there was once a requirement raised by the regulator in Sri Lanka that all professional accounting bodies and the other professional organizations, including associations for doctors and other professionals, they were all required to submit a complete list of their members to the regulator. And the purpose was to make sure that all of them are in the tax net. Now, once again, not giving an example of Sri Lanka, but then how would you consider this as a step? I think this is, particularly considering medical professionals, where they go for individual practice a lot, and they run hospitals, and they have other sources of income. And there are reports that indicate that very few medical professionals are in the tax net at the moment. What would you think of this suggestion to the regulators to bring all professionals into the tax net as a compulsion, and ask the authorities or the associations to make sure that all their members are are filers and in the tax net? What would you say about that?
If we look towards in Pakistan, we are also on the same lines. In Pakistan, if you look, the professionals working in any organization, they are normally taxed by the employer, or there is a tax on their salaries. And if we look towards the professional, those who are in the practice, and there is a sales tax as well, and the provincial sales tax on services, whether you are a lawyer or you are a practicing accountant, the professional sales tax is there, and you have to generate the invoice with the sales tax. So if we talk about the medical, I think the medical professionals should also be taxed, but there are some professions which are in the category of basic necessity. So medical is one of the category that is for the general public. So this should be taxed accordingly, so that the burden of taxation should not be shifted on the public. So there are some things which is for the corporate sector, and there are some services which are for the public at large. So the services which are for the public at large, it should be taxed on a reduced rates, rather than saying that the doctors are not paying tax, and they are not contributing anything. But on the other hand, if you look towards that, government is also not providing such kind of health facilities right now to the public at large. So the society at their own, surviving, the medical professionals at their own establishing their practicing clinics or like that things. So I believe that they should be taxed accordingly, and services which the professionals are giving to the corporate sector, it should be taxed at a reasonable rate.
Thank you. Thank you, Zasaf. Now, as we are coming toward the end, I would like to just put a short question to all three of you one by one. Zishan, why do you think we have not been able to use all the various databases, including withholding and another database, to expand our tax base? Just a quick comment, a short, quick, to the point.
Well, this is a very unfortunate reality. Like, we have a huge amount of data which is available to us, and we can do the taxation. We can make use of that. But the thing is, I would say the privacy factors. These are the things. These are the laws. Information privacy. These are hindering the progress in terms of taxation. Whenever there are an attempt to consolidate this data and put in perspective the information about the one individual, there are different associations and trade bodies. They come in play and play sort of a hindrance for collecting taxation for these authorities.
I think Mr. Shabir Fakhruddin is also available now. We've contacted him. So Shabir Sahab, if you can unmute your mic. And I think once again, Omar has gone offline. Gee, thank you very much, Shabir Sahab. Now, Shabir Sahab, you'll have to unmute your mic once again. I'm going to ask you a question particularly related to Gee, can you hear us now, Mr. Shabir?
Assalamu alaikum, Mohammed Saab, and all the participants of this webinar. A very good move by the ACCA Pakistan on the upcoming budget, which is being announced by the government on tomorrow, 10th of June. I suggest some very impressive suggestion. Presently, we are facing a energy shortage in our country. It is suggested that solar energy be completely exempted from all taxes to overcome from this acute problem of load shedding in our country. And direct tax rate is very high. Indirect tax, sorry, it should be at 12.5% instead of present rate of 17%. Taxation measures in tax rate, corporate tax rates are presently very high, and it is my recommendation that it should be not more than 20%. Tax rate on the individual sector is also high, and maximum rate should not be more than 25%. Minimum tax under section 113 should be reduced to 0.5%. A special incentive for new taxpayers, especially in retail and individual sector, should be announced with some facilities. Minimum tax under section 153 should be discontinued as previously in previous practice. Presently, government is trying to POS indicated retail sector. The tax rate at 17% is very high, and it is my suggestion that it should not be more than 5% to our POS sector. And 60% discount.
I have a question for you, if you allow me. This is Umar Zahir Mir. Sorry.
Sure, sir. Umar Saab. Ji Umar Saab, what is your question?
I think Umar disconnected.
Yeah, I think he's facing connectivity issues. He's probably in a low internet connectivity zone. So Shabir sir, since you represent Multan Tax Bar Association, and
Yes.
Multan is particularly our agri belt, mainly cotton, and since the cotton production has been facing severe crisis, and we are now, I mean, majorly a cotton exporting country now, and having to import cotton. Any specific recommendation about that? About
Sir,
the
yes,
cotton and
presently
sugar also?
uh, South Punjab is basically a agriculture sector, and cotton crop is a very hard cash crop of our farmers. But unfortunately, for last 3 to 4 years, many factories cotton has been ceased to work. And it is our regret to give a special incentive, and sale tax should on all these cotton products should be abolished for say at least 5 years to survive the industry. Otherwise, the as you know, the present scenario has shaken the trust of the farmers as well as the industrialists. It is my special suggestion to the government, and a special loan facility should also be given to industry to survive their issues of uh, financial issues.
Thank you very much. All right, so okay. Thank you very much, Abisa.
Thank you
Let's
very much.
take up a few questions. Let's take up a few questions from the audience. Once again, if anybody wants to ask a question, please type it in. We have Muhammad Ijaz, who's asked a question. He says, is there any suggestion placed for privatization of loss-making there's another question of loss making or slash organization with a significant deficit, the state-owned enterprises, SOEs. Further, do you see any seriousness in government towards privatization of these burdensome possessions? Zia Saab, first of all, your comments about this question about privatization of state-owned enterprises.
This is what I shared in my views, that from our institute we emphasized that rather than going for donor agency support, going for any other country support, it's more important that first we focus on our non-operational assets and our organizations which are in the losses. So we have to first go, we have to evaluate and speed up the process of privatization and focus on the privatization proceeds. So there are number of organizations on to which government of Pakistan are supporting from the national exchequer. They are in the severe losses, but the government is feeding finance and giving them a bailout packages. So we believe that the commercial organization in the first phase, the commercial organizations of the government should be privatized, and the focus should be to get the foreign exchange remittance, to get the privatization proceeds from the privatization, so that we can reduce this foreign exchange gap which is due to this trade deficit. So this is right now required on a Shahbaz speed. So we believe that maybe this will be done on a Shahbaz speed, because if there is a gap, maybe in the previous government there was a sometime a reluctancy in the decision making. There was some delays, but we are not criticizing, but we are expecting that if there was some deficiency in the previous, this should be removed. So they should address all such things and should go for that. Otherwise, there is a we are moving towards a very critical situation. So we have to reduce this gap. So I believe this is one of the important things, the privatization. So we have to go for that.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, so Shehbaz Makhdoom has come up with an important point, and that is about the ACC's budget proposal. Shehbaz and everybody else, if you look at the handouts in this webinar, there is a file by the name E-Budget Executive Summary. If you can download it, and at the end of this executive summary, the link to our final full report on the budget proposal from ACCA, that is available. However, it is going to come to into your inbox as well in a little bit, just as we had done with the session. Once again, we have a question from Ijaz, which is about pensions now. And the question is that the federal government needs 450 billion to run their business, and around 530 billions for pension, and much higher than the day-to-day needs of the government. And the government has already indicated that pension is becoming a huge burden, and probably going forward, supporting pensions of government employees and probably our armed forces will probably not be very feasible. The question is there a possibility of setting up pension funds at the federal level as well as the provincial levels to reduce the burden on the budget? So once again, Mr. Shabir Fakhruddin, and then Zia Saab, your comments on this as well, please.
Okay.
So first, I think Shafiq sir will give the comments.
Yeah, but I think he's not responding. So if I can come to you first.
So the question is related to the pension funds, establishment of pension funds. So, sir, normally this is the best practice that your funds, that your liabilities should be properly funded, and there should be a properly, if you look towards any organization, normally in the organizations we always try that your gratuities, should be funded, your provident fund should be properly, backed with the cash or with the, bank account. So likewise, the liabilities of the government which they are accruing every year, that should be, there should be properly funds, so that this should not be the burden on the government. And from this fund they can generate a lot of revenues as well by investing these funds in the securities, by investing these funds in different areas. So this is I think when we are going for a proper accounting and a proper bookkeeping and proper financial management, then the financial management demands that such kind of liabilities should be properly funded, so that it should not be the burden on the government in the coming years. So this is a very good suggestion, and the fund management is can create a lot of opportunities as well for the government for profit making, for revenue generation. So this is a good, I believe.
Thank you very much. The question from Johari Lal, it's more of a comment, and he wants comments in return as well, and it's about the State Bank of Pakistan. It's a more of an economics related question, but let me put it up to the panelists, and if any other panelist wants to respond as well. And the question is that State Bank of Pakistan is becoming the reason for inflation, and I would want to challenge that, but then he goes on to say, to some extent, by increasing the policy rate to a very high level. It's a catch-22. Yes, Omar, we just heard you.
Okay, great. Before I drop out, I just want to say two things, because I was traveling and the net has become really unstable now. There's one question that if I drop out, please do put that to Zia Saab as well as Shabir Saab, that why can't professional accountants like members of ACCA and ICMAP, who are tax professionals with tax bar, be accountant members at the appellate forums? And should we be looking at a joint lobbying effort for that in the interests of the economy and the national institutions? And secondly, thank you very much for joining, and I wish you all the very best. And just one quick comment, I joined in between, but I couldn't speak, and I was listening to Zia Saab's response to privatization. One thing that I would like everyone to consider is that in this climate, people would not even take these entities for free, although they have assets worth tens of billions. And Pakistan has a very unique climate. Do remember what happened with Etisalat, that is still going on to date. And do remember the scandal of K Electric, where the copper wires were sold and replaced with inferior. So Pakistan has its unique challenges. While nobody can disagree with the argument that something needs to be done with these entities, but perhaps we first need to take some strong decisions, organize them, bring them in a state where we can think about a rational privatization. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Asaf. So accounting and finance professionals.
Accounting professionals, with the passage of time, the importance of accountancy is increasing because everything we have to translate. In terms of finance, what we are earning and what kind of returns we are getting. If we have no proper books of account, then definitely the result is in front of us that still, in a public sector, a lot of organizations are still on a single entry system. Even the government of Pakistan budget, even if you look towards all the development budget, they are, they are charging it to the from the cash. They are not capitalizing such things which they are developing. Like they are spending a lot of money on a development. They are developing infrastructure, but these infrastructure are not capitalized in the books of account. So there are a lot of deficiencies, and we need no doubt the professional accountants. Unfortunately, the reason is that still in the civil services, the accountancy they are handling through the civil servants, and no doubt there was a time when civil servants were useful for all such purposes. But with the passage of time, the world is moving towards the expert qualification and different expert certifications. So I believe we have to follow that rather than stick on a system which is now 70 years old. We have to go for the experts. And still in the government, the recognition of professional accountant is very weak in the government organization. In the public sector companies, no doubt SCCP did a marvelous job, and through the code of corporate governance, there is a requirement that the CFO, the CIA, and the company secretary should be the professional accountant from the members of professional accountant community. But in the government organization like Auditor General of Pakistan and the Accountant General of Pakistan and other organizations like that, which is managing the overall finance of the Pakistan, still they are lacking in the professional accountants, and there is no pathway available. We have to join hands, and the government has to realize that they have to move towards that direction, that there should be all around the globe, the profession of accountancy is managing through professional people. But this is very unfortunate. Still in Pakistan, the professional accountants in the government especially have no proper pathway, and they are not giving any kind of preference. And if we talk about Sri Lanka is a very good example. In the constitution of Sri Lanka, it is mandatory that their Auditor General of Sri Lanka and Accountant General should be the professional accountant. So once you have a capable human resource, they will definitely improve the system because they have the domain knowledge. We have no issue with the civil servants, but with the passage of time, the things are changed, and the world is producing the experts. Even the accountancy has several fields: the forensic audit, internal audit, and then the financial managers, financial analysts. So there are specialization as well, and we have to move towards the specialization. And like privatization, there is always in Pakistan to serve in a public sector is always a question mark. It's always very difficult. If you are performing, people will doubt about you, why you are performing in a public sector. If you are not performing, they will again say that this is a man who has no capability. So in the public sector, it is very difficult to perform. But I believe that we should believe on the system, that we have go for such kind of things which the world has already tested. The privatization, the government, this is not the business, this is not the business of the government to run these commercial organizations. to run the transport companies, to run the airlines, to run the various things. We have to ultimately go into the system. No doubt, doubts are always there, but with the fear of these doubts, we should not stop the process. We have to engage the best companies, those have the reputable, those who have the reputation, and start the process through these organizations. But ultimately we have to go for such thing, and the government should get out of this. Government should focus on the issues like your foreign policies, your investment policies, rather than into day to day operation. कि आज पीएसओ का पैसा पूरा नहीं हुआ, सर्कुलर डेट हो गया, वापडा को पैसे नहीं दिए. We are engaged into day to day, and this is how the government is involved, ministries are involved in processing these things. They are not working at the strategic level, they are involved in the operations of the organizations. So this is the that's why we're saying that there should be public private partnership or a privatization, so that there should be a governance system. We have to improve the business of we have to improve the model of doing business in Pakistan. We have to improve this system. So otherwise, this is a vicious circle, and again, we are talking about the same.
Thank you very much, Jasab. And Umar very interestingly, very smartly asked you the question about professional accountants. I know this subject is very close to your heart. I heard you once about this subject in Islamabad at the session. And thank you very much, the force with which you lead this this conversation about the affairs of the government being run by professionals rather than people with very little training on accounting and finance. And you very rightly said privatization, or sorry, nationalization of Batala Engineering Company, which then became Pico, and then we lost it altogether as a resource, has been on the Facebook for a little while, and that's a living example of how organizations which could have been an asset of the country have been literally destroyed. Thank you very much. Last comments. Mohammed Jamil, I know you've been coming in and out and you're trying to say something. Anything you'd like to add to what we've discussed already? And then Zishan also from your side. After that, we'll close the session. Ji, Jamil, please unmute yourself.
No, I don't have any comments regarding this. And I am also the professional accountant. ये गम मेरा भी है. So we all can understand this. बस थोड़ा यहाँ पे लाइट का इशू है, इसकी वजह से मैं अपनी वीडियो बार-बार टर्न ऑफ कर रहा हूँ.
No problem, no problem. Thank you very much. Zishan, any final comments from your side?
Yeah, Harun sir, it's been a very productive discussion. One thing which I really want to add is that, as myself being an entrepreneur and other entrepreneurs who are working over here, and these businesses are really IT dependent businesses. These are they're running on internet and infrastructure. So I would say if somehow our government could establish and ensure a better internet services, Umar's being suffered. He's been suffering the same issue. Where if somehow we could have lower bandwidth cost along with if we could increase services. The PTA if ensure that bare minimum 4 Mbps internet is given, and we could invest a huge amount of infrastructure and we will wider coverage and better quality of services. Like as Yasa was saying, for every problem there's a solution, and we need to ensure the proper avenue could be public-private partnerships and these things. If we could start doing and start solving problems with collaboration of the private sector, it will really ease out a big burden for our government and our country as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You made a very good point that if if we have to reap the full potential of export of services, we have to have the basic infrastructure in place. I mean, I would take it to that level. And without having good internet services, export of services is not going to be possible. There was a very interesting comment that I read that India's export of services, the revenue that they earn from export of services, is more than the money that Saudi Arab earns from its export of oil. That is the kind of potential export of services has. And I think if we have to increase exports, If we have to be an export-driven economy, we will have to focus on export of services in addition to export of textile and export of other agri-based products and other things. Thank you very much. Very productive discussion. I agree with you, Zishan, but the discussion will only be useful once it is, represented to the right quarters, the regulators. We make them hear it, and that is what we are going to do together with ICMAP, with the tax bars, to make the government hear these recommendations and to take solid steps in the right direction. Thank you very much.
A quick see, as you have brought up the textile exports and all the other exports, I would like to add on, if our in all the embassies and the foreign offices, we have the commerce chancellors, counselors who are working over there. If they could invest their time and abilities, and they could have the capacity to establish a brand Pakistan, a next destination for the IT exports, as well as the startups and the businesses which are thriving over here. See, we have all the potential. So all we need to do is to channel our energy in a right way and direction, which could help us to reaching that.
Great. Yes, thank you very much. Again, coming back to Zia Saab's point, the civil services officers, they need to be professionals. So I think on that note, I think we'll close the session. Thank you very much for joining in. The budget proposal was available. You could have downloaded it, but if you have not, don't worry. We will email it to you shortly. And Zia Saab, we've emailed it to you as well for circulation to your members also. And we will love to have your budget proposal as well, for circulation to ACCA members. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking time out. Omar, in your absence, thank you very much. And Asad is also there. Thank you very much. I hope you've been listening to the interesting conversation. Thank you very much for your participation as well. Any final closing comment from your side, after which we close the session?
Thank you very much, Arun. Wonderful initiative, and I think it would not have been possible without Zia Saab being there, without Zishan continuing, without Jamil joining us, and obviously Umar Zahir Mir taking out time despite we knew that he had to travel. So thank you once again, but this is just the start of the series. So we are going to, after the budget announcement, also set up sessions where we can probably compare the direction that is now set once the budget is announced. Today we have the economic survey which has been published as well, so it's good to see a very fair assessment in certain ways within. I've just gone through or skimmed through the executive summary, and hopefully the interventions, the suggestions, the economic model, the key shifts that has been mentioned in the conversations today, started by Zia Saab, we are able to see that happening and coming live within the actual policy making. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Take care. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.